I'm really very, very glad to see everyone. I'm very glad it's not raining. I'm glad it's not 40 degrees. Um, but mostly I'm just very um, proud to be here, proud of all of you. Um, I will say just a little bit about the events of this year at MIP, which has really been very, very good. Uh, we have had a couple of town halls which have been well attended and have been very thoughtful and productive. We have had a poetry reading at Stuart and Barbara Piser's home, which was truly wonderful and um, interrupted conversations about politics, which was welcome. We have a new space in Brookline in the Pierce Building, a much larger office, which can hold classes and meetings of various kinds. Um, we have not applicants, accepted candidates for next year's four-year program and the postgraduate fellow program. We have so many fellows that we have two cohorts. And the Steckler program also has accepted fellows, and those applications do not close till July. Um, there are new co-chairs who have stepped up very generously, and we also have a couple of new projects which actually are still not even known to all MIP members. For example, a community outreach project, which is actually amazingly going well, and we'll tell you more about it. The main point is it's been a good year for MIP. Next year promises also to be a good year, and that is all I will say for now. And wherever Abby is, Abby McNally, our president-elect, will speak about the postgraduate fellowship program. Here she is.
Good morning. It's such a delight to be here with you all. And I'm particularly honored to have been asked in my capacity as president-elect to introduce this year's group of graduates from the postgraduate fellowship program. I currently happen to be on the faculty of the four-year program in psychoanalysis, where the last couple of years I've been teaching relational psychoanalysis. And one of my favorite books from the relational literature, all-time books probably ever in psychoanalysis, is a book, collection of chapters, not even his papers, by Erwin Hirsch called Coasting in the Countertransference. And basically, he runs through all the ways that we can fall easily into the ubiquitous, subtle, insidious, ongoing small e enactments, because it's simply more comfortable to stay where we are comfortable, where it's easygoing. And I guess this makes me just want to say to the incoming class graduates of the fellowship program that it is no small feat to step into the discomfort of a psychoanalytic frame of thinking. The human mind, we are oriented towards maintaining homeostasis with a very, very small window of comfort, from temperature to thirst to hunger to sleep needs, but definitely to emotional needs and anxiety regulation needs. So it really is a difficult and daunting task, Hirsch reminds us, to voluntarily step into discomfort and disequilibrium. And that's what we're asked to do every day of our lives as psychoanalysts and psychoanalytically oriented therapists. So bravo to this group for taking the plunge and taking a first step into discomfort. The MIP fellowship program itself has been under a period of disequilibrium and uncertainty for the last year. I am so proud and excited to say that as we hope happens with our patients after these kinds of periods, we emerge with new and exciting growth, and that is what we have to share with you today. So I do first want to thank the prior co-chairs of the last 6 years, Malcolm Slavin and Karen Peratt, especially Mal, who has served for MIP for 38 years and was a founder of our organization. We're grateful for your service. This year we had a very seasoned transition team step in with Deborah Dowd, who's here, Sherry Ettinger, I don't know who's here right now, Joan Goldberg, and Luann Grossman, who courageously and with tremendous effort stepped in to help with a transition of the PGFP in a number of different ways. So with them at the helm, this year we are very proud to say that we have successfully established a fixed space location for MIP to host classes in an ongoing way. So we're at 1330 Beacon Street now with a space large enough to host the PGFP as well as other classes in the 4-year program. This year I think we've had one class, the second year class has been there, and the first year has been still the Harvard Faculty Club, but we'll all be there going into the future. And thanks to Sammy Konchevsky for incredible decorating, organizing, renting, negotiating. We would not be here without her. I just, in addition to that, want to say that there have been some curricular changes that have been implemented with this group, bringing in a 2-class period on social, cultural contributions and setting that contributed to the evolution of psychoanalytic thinking from the beginning. As well as I think underway is the possibility of adding another course at the end of the typical tenure on contemporary theory, Lacan, beyond field theory, and the like. We also, as Frances mentioned, have expanded. So we had so many applications this year that we have 2 cohorts of 12, so 24 fellows coming in this coming year. In addition to, I think, we're very close to deciding on doing a 2nd-year fellowship as well. And apparently enough applications coming in that there's a long wait list now for future years. Very exciting. And finally, just would like to welcome and announce that our new PGFB co-chairs for the following year are going to be Pamela Lampto and Becca Eddie Musili, who may be here. So welcome to the 2 of you, and we look forward to a new era. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the first-year graduates of the PGFP. Alexander Chang. You may not all be here, Chang. Tracy Clementi. Karen Gardner. Abhilasha Kirana. Temitope Ugandare. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I just thought they weren't here. Please come up if you've been announced. Tell your name. Anyone else I missed? Okay. Huey Wong. Sarah Walker. Childra Tripathi. Jamie Silva. Mark Schwendeman. Tyir Shur. Rhiannon Roberts. Javier Rizzo. And I believe I said Temitope Ungandari, who I don't think is here with us. And then we will introduce our second group of graduates from the PGFP2. Mary Stackpool. Sarah Van Shake. Devin Van Dyke. Nick Messia. Ellen McCarthy. Evelyn King. I believe we have it. Thank you very much. Congratulations to the graduates of CGFB. And now are we moving on to the Steckler Child Fellowship Program. Lisa Slater.
Thank you, Andy. We had a wonderful year this year. Really a terrific class with great minds, rich learning experiences, rich case presentations, and we are now in our 8th year making and contributing to the child therapy world and continuing a psychodynamic tradition, which, as many of you know, with the way training goes with UBT and CBT, is getting lost. So we're really proud of what we've been doing. We also had a graduate do a case presentation this year for the wider professional community, and he is one of our graduates, Matt Eckhart, and he just did an incredibly wonderful job with the case, and we're very proud that he's sort of arrived. With that, I want to announce our graduates when I can. Thank you. I don't think anyone's here, which is a sort of Steckler tradition. But I would like to tell you their names because they deserve acknowledgement, and I am very, very proud to have taught them. Okay, the first person is Shaika Alhamaz-Maizi. A.B. Huber. Camille McCobb. Tahara Nadim. Julia Slotkin. Ari Zimmett. And that's it. Thank you very much. And next, we're going to have the 4-year graduates announced, and spoken for and hear their comments about their learning experiences here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So I'm Rob Riethfeller. This is Caleb Englander. We're the co-chairs of the training committee here. And just thinking while we're up here how remarkable it is that MIP has been doing this for the last 38 years. We're both remembering this is really the last step in becoming an analyst at MIP, is giving a speech and talking a little bit about your experience. And it really, psychoanalytic training is really such a remarkable endeavor. When you think about people starting an analysis, a 4-year analysis, moving towards seeing their patients 4 times a week, melding with the class and talking very intimately about their work, there's really no way that it can't sort of change you as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about psychoanalysis and MIP and graduation is that it's the end of something. It's a huge accomplishment, but it's also the beginning of something else. And to having a new relationship with psychoanalysis, with MIP, with one's professional career. And so it's both the ending, something to celebrate and feel accomplished, and to the unknown of what lies ahead, which is also very exciting. So, unless there's anything else, Rob. All right.
We've got 3 analysts to celebrate today. The first is Kira Glassman, who will be discussed by Deborah Dow.
Hello, everyone. It is my deep pleasure to speak on behalf of Kira. Kira brings together a rare combination of seriousness and laughter. She's by far my best audience. I don't know what I'll do without her. Quick to laugh, always ready to meet even the most spontaneous reactions with humor and thoughtful curiosity. She listens in a way that makes you feel she's truly invested, pensive, curious, engaged. When Kira looks at you, you can feel her wondering what you're really thinking. And when we talk about clinical moments, she listens not just for content, but for meaning. She's listening for what's not being said. Through her training, Kira has shown a quiet, absorbing presence that picks up on every nuance in the room. She is careful, involved, and deeply committed to knowing her patients as fully as they and she will allow. In her final paper, Kira asks one of the hardest questions we face as analysts. She asks, what is the role of an analyst when hope feels absent? And she doesn't ask this in theory, she asks it from the inside, from the experience of working with patients facing profound challenges like blindness, disability, and despair so deep that the very idea of a fulfilling future feels unreachable. Kira, even if trepidatious at times, allows herself to go there, not just to witness her patient's despair, but to feel her own. She faced the painful truth that no matter the amount of care or effort, she could not fix what was broken. And so she did the harder thing. She stayed. She stays with her patients in hopelessness. She bears witness. She makes space. She holds the thread of connection even when attunement feels out of reach. In her words, Kira says, the struggle is not just about maintaining attunement, but about tolerating the moments where even attunement feels precarious. Where does the work happen? What sustains the analytic couple when the analyst can no longer hold hope for the patient or even for the treatment itself? These are not just brave questions, they are essential ones. Kira's work lives in that difficult space between despair and connection, between knowing and not knowing. She may not always see the full extent of her capacity, but I do, we do. Whether she's quietly observing from the side or laughing playfully at an offhanded comment, she is always paying attention. She is present, she is engaged, and she is deeply talented. Kira, wherever you choose to stand in this crowd, know that you've earned your place in the front of the room. Congratulations.
After 7 years of being a candidate, it feels strange to actually be graduating today. I really would have been okay with being a candidate for another 7. But sometime during year 6, Deborah told me it was time to wrap it up. I said I didn't want to because the idea of giving a speech at graduation makes me so anxious. I said to her, Deborah, is there any way I can complete this training without having to talk in front of everyone? And she said, you could, but you'd only be calling more attention to yourself by not speaking. So just make the speech. That's just one example of the kind of wisdom I benefited from during my training at MIP. I don't need to tell a group of analysts how profoundly analytic training changes us, our way of thinking, and the possibilities it opens up for our patients and ourselves. What I would like to say is how appreciative I am of the people at MIP. I was lucky to be with a kind and thoughtful cohort for 4 years. I'm thankful to the faculty who generously share with us their brilliance and passion for the work. Most of all, I'm indebted to my supervisors, Deborah, David Doolittle, and Larry Chudd, for their support, their patience, and their guidance. So many people in this community have been invested in me one way or another over the last decade, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
So next we'll hear from Jessica Summers, and speaking for her will be Karen Roos.
Okay, I'm not used to talking with a microphone. So let me know if I'm talking too fast. I better see what I've got. Okay. I'm delighted to be here to speak for Jess. I met Jess 10 years ago when she was a fellow at Cambridge Hospital, and I was randomly assigned to be her supervisor. It was clear to me very soon that Jess was a reverie medium, able to intuitively contact not the spirits of the dead, but rather of the living, those unable to bear their emotional pain. Jess did not yet know that. It initially frightened her. For me, it was like discovering a rare wildflower. Listening to Jess, I encountered a therapist with an extraordinary capacity for emotional and somatic receptivity and reverie. She could vividly and spontaneously describe the experience and the evolution of a meeting with any patient, with no notes. Never a note. The session came to life. In the telling, Jess included evocative descriptions of intense countertransference feelings and bodily sensations. She had vivid dreams about patients that illuminated their unarticulated anguish. Jess, unbidden, lent her body and mind to the inchoate communications of those individuals who had found her. I've had the pleasure of continuing to supervise Jess throughout her training at MIP and beyond. I have watched her develop into a sophisticated and creative psychoanalyst who can go wherever her patients need her to go. Jess suffers her Winnicott primitive agonies in the way that Avner Bergstein describes. Treating individuals who reside in the psychotic part of the mind places great demands on the analyst to be a lively, engaging presence, to be flexible and spontaneous, to tolerate feeling lost and confused, perhaps helpless or despairing or angry, until meaning coheres, sometimes in a flash, in an image or reverie, but sometimes after a long, dreamless journey in the dark. All this captures how Jess works. It is no easy task to notice and trust one's reveries in this turbulent space that strains the representational capacities of any analyst. It is the challenge of creating psychic figurability in the face of the void. I want to cry. Jess lives and breathes in this space. I don't know why I'm crying. It may be because I retired yesterday. So it's a big weekend. Okay. All right, I'll try. Jess lives and breathes in this space, using her robust analytic bones of internalized psychoanalytic theory, along with her creative capacity for intuition, reverie, and dreaming, to help fill the psychic voids of those individuals fortunate enough to see her. Supervising Jess, I didn't expect this, has been one of the greatest pleasures of my psychoanalytic career.
Well, I'll be doing some of that too. Okay. And I just want to say before I start, I'm going to include a little bit of clinical material shared with the patient's permission. Okay. So here we are, my first control and I, looking out over our 7-year journey, her analysis and my training. Talking of termination, the vantage point swivels, broadens. We take in the now that has emerged all around us. The view from the canopy reveals what could only be glimpsed in our day-to-day wandering through the understory, an arc of change that carried her, as she puts it, from no life to life. I'm not in a culvert, she says, hearkening back to an early sense of herself as a liquid in a box, no internal architecture to give her shape, no identity, no life of her own. She remembers hiking in the Southwest, following the path of a small river, and seeing the threshold of transition from water shunted through a cement tube to the free-flowing riverbed, with its abundant plants and birdsong, the teeming banks of a living ecosystem. She says these days she feels like a river in a riverbed. She, the water, cradled by earth, and shaping the earth in turn. Collaboration in motion, a slow and intimate transformation over time. Surely my colleagues and loved ones here today are my riverbed, inexorably holding, shaping, and being shaped in our mutual journey through living and learning. To my supervisors, instructors, and community of colleagues at MIP and beyond, thank you for being with me in this long labor of love, learning to practice the painstaking, ineffable art of psychoanalysis. To my long-term supervisor, Karen, who would I be had I not landed in your supervisory nest, barely hatched out of social work school? Karen, you taught me to trust my felt experience and to value my reverie as my most powerful clinical tool. You gifted me a deep respect for the risks our patients take in coming alive to a world of feeling, and you showed me the importance of suffering turbulence without knowing where it will lead. You lent me your faith that the analytic process, in its own mysterious way, will yield a richness of living as yet unknown to patient or analyst in the thick of the work. I could not be the analyst I am today without you. Congratulations on your retirement. To my own analyst, thank you for weathering 11 years with me in all my intensity, quietly loosening the constraints of my life, softening my inner world, and opening the door to a life more fully inhabited and, dare I say, enjoyed. Your patient, steady, and loving presence and your capacity to be with me in the heart of my emotional experience has, like water over stone, gently but powerfully dissolved my aloneness. I am more joyfully myself because of you. To my to my parents, who consistently believed in me through the twists and turns in my career and trusted in this leap of faith, thank you for your love, generosity, and the warm welcome you've held open for me over all the years of my life. To my husband, Kyle, you have uplifted me at every turn, even when it embarrasses me. You have unselfishly supported me in giving so much of myself to training. How lucky am I that you have given your wholehearted blessing to my love affair with psychoanalysis. Your faith in me is contagious, your enthusiasm generous, and your public display of pride, well, that is still unbearable. And to my spirited, funny, and strong-willed daughter, Elodia, I love seeing the person you are and the person you're becoming day by day. You taught me how to be a mother, which is ultimately the best training I could ever receive. Thank you.
Lastly, we'll hear from Jennifer Irvin, and Deborah Dowd will be speaking for her.
Jennifer. I met Jennifer the year the BIP closed, a time of endings and uncertain beginnings. I remember David Ranieri, then the clinical director, saying, "I've got someone very special for you." And he was right. He didn't say she was bright or talented or deeply intuitive, though she is all of those things. He said special, and that word fits best. From the beginning, Jennifer brought something rare, a quiet bravery, a deep sensitivity, an unusual depth of thought and feeling. She is a voracious reader of all things psychoanalytic, but her presence isn't loud. It's unmistakably felt. She has a way of being that lets you know you're with someone sharp of mind, sensitive of heart, and on a journey of discovery. Jennifer entered her training holding a line from Winnicott, "It is a joy to be hidden and a disaster not to be found." Her journey has been just that, a long, careful reaching toward being found. With her permission, I'll share that in her final paper, Coming into Being, A Sense of Things, she describes herself as once living in a treehouse high above the world, a fortress that kept her essence safe. And we all know these places. They shield us from what can feel unbearable, and yes, of course, can also keep us from feeling fully alive. With fear, with courage, Jennifer made her way down from that treehouse. Not all at once, not without struggle, but step by step, with care and heart, she came into view. To witness Jennifer's training was to witness a mind and a soul coming home to itself, it seemed. She has risked being known by others, her patients, and perhaps most bravely, to herself. She's fought for freedom of mind, and not the easy kind, but the kind found by walking in the darker woods of feeling and staying. Bion once said, and Jennifer quotes him, "In every consulting room there ought to be two rather frightened people, the patient and the analyst. If they are not both frightened, one wonders why they are bothering to find out what everyone knows. Jennifer didn't shy away from that fear. She stepped into it, let herself be disturbed and changed in service of discovering something new, something true. Jennifer, you have come down from the treehouse. You have stood in the clearing. You've let yourself be seen, and now others can find themselves through your presence. It's a privilege to witness your coming into being as an analyst, and a privilege to have you as a colleague.
Thank you. I'm very touched. It's on? Yes. I'm nervous. I'll just put it out there. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and see so many familiar faces. I'm here with my daughters, Liz and Elaine. My son Rob would be here if he could. He's on the West Coast. It has taken me 8 years to get here, and it has been a deeply meaningful journey. I've been in great hands along the way with David Ranieri, Deborah Dowd. I'm happy you're both here with me today. I've worked with 2 supervisors on the West Coast, Judy Eckhoff in Seattle, Henry Markman in Berkeley. They're here in spirit. Deborah Abrams and Anna Stothard kept me on track and cared in my training as liaisons. I have been met with curiosity and tenderness by each of them and many others over the years. It's really nice to have Dina and Ann here, cohort. We came into the program together, finishing at different paces, but I'm glad to have you here. It has taken me 8 years, and I needed all 8. I needed time to come alive and make real contact within myself and with others outside of me. In a sense, a time to unfold, deepen, venture out, all the ways one begins to inhabit more of themselves in the world. In training and in my analysis, I have experienced a coming to life. I have become more myself. Deborah mentioned my treehouse. It was a metaphor that came to me as I began to write my final paper. The title was Coming into Being, A Sense of Things. I aimed to explore the experiences of being, not of knowing, in me and in my work. The treehouse is a place where I have lived, in my mind, for most of my life. It's a playful, creative place, but it's also a place where I lived removed from real relationship. There's a Winnicott quote that has resonated with me deeply since the first I heard it years ago. I just didn't know why. It is the one that goes, it's a joy to be hidden and a disaster to not be found. It is my treehouse. It wasn't until I had experiences of being recognized and emotionally connected, mainly in supervisions and analysis, that I could venture out on the limb. It's precarious, but I'm out there. Emerging from the treehouse into real relationship has taken time. It is what I've been doing these 8 years. I've come a long way and have had loving company. And in all the moments that I have felt held, contained, and recognized, found over the years, I'm tremendously grateful.
So, okay. Then we can eat dinner. But, I am very, very happy to celebrate Linda Gelda as a recipient of the 2025 Paul Meyerson Award. Linda, where are you? The Meyerson Award is meant to recognize, quote, forthright and unstinting commitment to MIP, intellectual contributions to the field of psychoanalysis, courage, vision, openness to ideas, and plain-spoken voice. As Mary McDonald, one of the two MIP members who nominated Linda for this award, wrote, quote, Linda epitomizes these qualities. She has filled so many roles at MIP. Having recently moved from New York to Boston with a very young family, she became a candidate in MIP's second ever class beginning in, I think, 1989. Upon graduation, she founded the MIP newsletter entitled Free Associations. She also began serving on committees, many committees, first ethics and then curriculum. She then became co-chair of the training committee and was president of MIP from 2012 to 2014. She again served on the ethics committee and on the finance committee and on a number of task forces, including one on supervision and most recently, one focused on racial equity and anti-Black racism. She has been a member of the MIP Reads Planning Committee and the Town Hall Planning Committee. She has served on the board as a committee co-chair and is now a voting faculty member. Her MIP teaching history is extensive. In the 4-year program, she has taught clinical courses and the self-psychology course. She also taught the year-long contemporary theory course, as well as a sequence in the development course. In the postgraduate fellowship program, she has taught a mini semester course on psychoanalytic approaches to eating disorder treatment. Currently, she facilitates the ethics seminar for candidates and co-teaches in the second year PGFP class. As Mary mentions in her nomination, Linda brings sorely needed knowledge of group relations to our institute. She is a member of the Center for the Study of Groups and Social Systems and is a group relations consultant for the A.K. Rice Institute for the Study of Social Systems. For those unfamiliar with A.K. Rice, this is an institute whose work draws on that of Beyond to study, train, and run group relations conferences on leadership, organizational structure, and the unconscious processes which give rise to non-rational behavior in individuals and groups. But these are just facts about Linda's history at MIP. Larry Chudd, who also nominated Linda, begins to bring her contributions to life in his nominating remarks. Quote, hard to think of anyone who has given more to MIP. Tireless teacher, supervisor, mentor, committee member, and co-chair, past president who navigated MIP through one of its most challenging periods, embodies the comparative spirit, has taught everything from self-psychology to post-Beyondian field theory, has always been willing to step up and fill in where there's been a need. End quote. Larry also observed what others echoed, that the recognition accorded Linda by this award is long overdue. Bravo! Here are a few other remarks from those who have worked with her at MIP, and these are all quotations. Linda is a wonderful person, a wonderful listener, and incredibly thoughtful in putting out her ideas, always mindful of what's going on in the group as a whole. Linda has brought her knowledge of group relations to MIP. It's been a crucial part of her contributions. This last observation was echoed by several others. Another one. I see her wisdom, warmth, openness, humor, dedication, humbleness, and calm presence. Another. In the years I was actively involved at MIP, Linda was one of the hardest working people I knew in the organization. But beyond that, she is thoughtful, kind, and deeply reflective. A leader open to new directions and welcoming of new thinking. Linda is thoughtful, kind, warm, and welcoming. She listens to and considers multiple perspectives, reflects on her own learning and missteps, offers thoughtful feedback, and always keeps an eye on the group process. She is not hung up on hierarchy and always made me feel included in MIP, even though I am not an analyst. Finally, a comment by a supervisee of Linda's. I received supervision from Linda on a case involving a highly activated negative countertransference of mind toward the partner of a patient. Linda enabled me to offer my patient an analysis rather than a rescue attempt. It is impossible for me to include all the glowing remarks made by Linda by her MIP colleagues. I can only add that when I became president, Linda reached out to me. We took a walk around the Chestnut Hill Reservoir, and she gave me such good suggestions about how I might usefully approach my role. Throughout the last year and a half, she has continued to provide generous support and advice, and I am forever grateful to her for this. I almost forgot to add, from the time Linda was, I think, 16 years old, she has been a potter. I bid on a beautiful piece of hers at last fall's MIP art auction. Someone placed a higher bid. And I was dumb enough not to go higher. In any case, Linda is a wonderful potter, showing that she is versatile in her use of her mind as well as her big heart. Actually, that's the end of what I will say. I think Karen Roos has a few remarks to make as well.
Okay, I don't think I'm gonna cry this time. I'm just speaking on a more personal level about Linda. Okay, I've known Linda since 1992, when I was a third-year candidate, and Linda dropped down from the fourth-year cohort to join my small class. That's almost 33 years ago. Linda brought such vitality, warmth, and astute intelligence to my class that it transformed my experience of exploring the vast territory of psychoanalysis. Linda is a remarkable adventurer and explorer in all aspects of her life. She forges her own path. Practicing psychoanalysis was not enough. Linda extended, as Frances said, she extended her learning to the A.K. Rice group training and has over the years become a valued leader or consultant of experiential process groups. In a different kind of adventure, Linda discovered and then introduced me to the original thinking of Riccardo Lombardi, an Italian psychoanalyst who explored body-mind dissociation beyond the familiar psychoanalytic thinking about dissociation or splitting. This was a time when Farrow's field theory was ascendant. According to Farrow, who I also value, everything a patient said was a communication about what was happening here and now in the intersubjective field between patient and analyst. Lombardi would call that the horizontal axis. He maintained that equally important and neglected is the individual's vertical axis, his internal sensory and emotional axis, a mind-body axis. Early relational trauma leaves a baby, child, or adult alienated from his own body and the possibility of a core self. For Lombardi, the psychoanalytic project is activating a dialogue between the person's body and mind by using his own bodily countertransference and the, quote, creative entanglement of both patient and analyst. It's possible in this way to reach the individual suffering extreme forms of mental disturbance, contact with the unrepresented and psychotic part of the mind. I'm telling you all this because Linda really just was so intent on reaching her patients at every level that she pursued a theory that was not easily available. So Linda and then Dolan Power and I met with Lombardi on a regular basis for maybe 5 years. This adventure infused and deepened our work with individuals who had experienced such profound early trauma. After Lombardi, the three of us continued in a peer supervision group for the last 7 or 8 years, bringing our most challenging analyses to our collective minds. And I would say it was the finest working group I've ever belonged to. And then, as Frances said, there is Linda, the skilled potter whose beautiful vases and bowls punctuate her house and office with her lively aesthetic sensibility. And then there's Linda, the naturalist. I often picture Linda kayaking solo on her remote wilderness lake, entranced by nature, and watching her loons build a nest and hatch their baby looms, a seasonal wonder.
I'll read it.
Okay. Thank you, Karen and Frances, for this acknowledgement. MIP has been my professional home and extended family. I always felt like a member, even the times when I didn't want to be. I am grateful for my friends, colleagues, work spouses, committee co-chairs, peer supervision friends, co-teachers, board members, committee members, with whom we've worked tirelessly in support of MIP's mission. Even the impetus to start a newsletter in the early 90s was to enhance communication and connection amongst members, a literary water cooler. I remember each person on that committee and the work they put in with drive and integrity, and we had fun getting together. The phrase that keeps coming to my mind is, one thing just led to another, and then another. I'll give you a few examples. When I moved from New York with my husband, Steve, and 2 very small children, and they're here today with their children, we happened to move to a neighborhood that was around the corner from Jonathan Slavin. Serendipity, because someone in New York had given me his name and the recommendation to look him up. So I did, and he told me about MIP, a new institute he was starting. It sounded radical, edgy, and important. I applied and was admitted to the second class, actually. And I don't know if Linda Luz Alterman is here today. No, she was in my class. And at home was my Steve with Jenny, who was less than a year old, and Lizzie, who was a little over 2 years old. Okay, here's some Ancestry.com. Being a candidate in 1989, first year, I remember going to Paul Meyerson's house on Dorset Road for class. I have no idea what he taught, but his co-teacher's name was Nahama. It so happens in the second year, our class blew up. There was an explosion having to do with an ethical boundary violation that exposed a fault line in the underlying structure of MIP, which was subsequently worked on, learned from, and changed as a result. In fact, it's one of the reasons that we don't adjudicate. That led me to join another class. I was sort of brought in as a stepchild. I got to know more people at this fledgling institute, some of whom I'm still friends with. Sort of grew up together in this young, dynamic, crazy institute family. I remember the early board meetings, which were so contentious and fiery. There were major conflicts about MIP's mission, including what's the definition of psychoanalysis and fundamental questions about our identity. It took 7 years to write the mission statement. I was intimidated. I don't think I spoke for years, but I was fascinated by the passionate disagreements in the room and relieved not to be in the line of fire, sort of like a vigilant, observant child. Here's another example of one thing led to another, serendipity. Around 2011 or so, I remember driving to New Hampshire and saying out loud to my husband, I sort of feel like a lightweight at MIP. I wasn't inclined to speak in highly intellectualized theoretical ways. But here's what happened right after that. At the time, I was teaching in the year-long contemporary theory course, which was very hard to teach, but incredibly satisfying. And I was co-chair of the training committee at the same time. And still, I felt like a lightweight. Uncannily, my co-teacher of the contemporary theory and my co-chair of the training committee, each of my two partners, were thinking of running for president, in part because they each represented opposing factions at MIP. Neither wanted to be president, but they also didn't want the other side to win. That was their impetus to run. Then each of them asked if I would be willing to serve as MIP's next president, and if so, they would drop out. It had never occurred to me. I recall my analyst being uncharacteristically animated at the time and saying, "Serve as president, what a headache." It was not her cup of tea, nor was it mine, but then I imagined how I'd feel years down the road in turning down this opportunity. And I thought I'd be disappointed. So I ran and I served. In fact, I just found my nomination statement in a folder, and it's remarkable how relevant it still is today. One thing led to another. Due to my concerns about being the president-elect of MIP, otherwise known as extreme anxiety, an announcement for a conference entitled Leadership and Authority came into my inbox. I signed up. It was a 5-day local conference, excellent timing. But what I didn't know, because I never read the brochure, was that it was a 5-day experiential residential conference in the here and now, held at a retreat center. You had to stay over. I remember sitting in the first large group meeting stunned. I was ready to fall over in my chair. It was all groups from morning until night, small and large, and some were quite chaotic. There were no presentations and no notes to take. I was disoriented until the group facilitators did something unusual. They addressed the unconscious in the room, a language I understood. It startled and grabbed me. I was simultaneously in this strange place, but also at home. Unnerved and excited about the immediacy and honesty in the room, it was actually a relief. After the conference, I took a deep dive into the study of leadership and unconscious group dynamics. I also hired an executive coach, a psychoanalyst active in the group relations world. 3 of his suggestions or mantras made a deep impression on me. When I had to exert my authority and was anxious about it, these were his 2 comments. And Abby, I don't know where you are, but this is for you. One of them was, "You only die once." The other was, and grandchildren, close your ears, fuck 'em. And when in conflict, consider how the other person is also right, which can be quite challenging and humbling. Not that they're right, but that they're also right. The role of president led me to further study and train in group relations. I encourage all of you to consider taking up leadership roles and attending a group relations conference. If you can learn from your experience of mess-ups and tolerate the episodic shame, there's endless learning to be had, even when traveling in the dark. Here's the last example of one thing led to another, and this is clinical. Speaking of serendipity, I moved from the warmth and comfort of teaching and practicing self-psychology for years into the darkness of contemporary object relations and Bionian theory because I couldn't understand and empathize with a very troubled woman I saw in analysis. So theoretically, I dove into the area of the death instinct, what was then called primitive mental states, unrepresented states concretized in the body, second skin protections, leaky containers, colonized minds, the ego-destructive superego. I could go on, and I did go on. And I came to love the exploration of reading and writing. And I worked with two supervisors. As Karen mentioned, one was Riccardo Lombardi, which was just fascinating. The richness of the clinical work, the ways in which it has transformed me is beyond words, and I'm sure you can all relate. There's nothing like it. I'm grateful to be able to work with people who I usually come to love. On another note, in defiance of the government, although racism and DEI are now considered taboo, I so value the work we've done over the last decade or so. Many at MIP are actively working on recognizing and addressing injustice, exclusion, power imbalances, and racism in psychoanalysis. There has been some real progress. In closing, after nearly 4 decades since its inception, MIP is undergoing a significant generational transition. The founders and baby boomers are phasing out their clinical practices, pulling back, fading from the scene. Town halls have contributed to more honest conversation, more tender and painful sharing. The middle generation is ascending, which is awesome. There's new leadership, a different developmental track and memory, same family, different childhood. Frances and Sammy, I credit you both for so warmly welcoming new members into leadership positions. So it will be fascinating to see where MIP goes over time, more from the balcony than the dance floor. So thank you, friends and colleagues. It's been a really good ride.
Presenting Linda with the Myers vase.
It's a silver bowl with
The bowl,
Thank you.
Congratulations, Linda. I just wanted to say a quick word in closing, which is just simply to thank Frances Lang, our fearless and courageous leader. Frances is as understated and as humble as ever, but deserves tremendous credit for seeing us through some complicated years here, and we're so grateful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Let's enjoy some lunch.